Hello and welcome to another episode on MyCast. This is your host Kasturi.
And this is your host, Pallavi.
We are in conversation today with Sanjana Singh, creative director at Terribly Tiny Tales. She's a content extraordinaire and a storyteller, having created multiple content IPs for brands like Amazon Prime Video, Hershey's India, Cadbury Dairy Milk Silk, OkCupid, TLC, and many more.
She's also responsible for building a 5 million strong digital community organically, with a core expertise in the creation and curation of promotional content for brands in the form of engaging social media friendly storytelling formats. We are extremely excited to have you on board. Welcome to my cast, Sanjana.
Hi guys, excited as well, very, very excited.
So, starting right off with the first question that we have for you, TTT is a thriving platform with an immense reach, strong audience connect, and a flourishing storytelling environment. And you have been an integral part of this process since 2017. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your writing journey with TTT?
So my writing journey actually officially began with TTT. I'm very, very fortunate to be able to say that. I am an engineer by academic qualification, and I have pursued electronics and communication engineering from a government college, and I think that sets the basis for most of the careers today. That you have to be an engineer before you can be what you really want to be, and yes, I think joined TTT in 2015 unofficially. I became a part of their remote writing team. They used to run TTT from a very, very small office here in Bombay, and I only knew a bunch of people who were working in the core team, and I just reached out to them. I was a fan. You know how generally people start following TTT, and most of the people today in TTT started as fans. So I was a fan, and I was like, wow, there's this company in the clutter of everything and anything on social media. They are telling stories. And if I want to become a writer, maybe this is the right place to start. So I used to send them 20 tales a day. A day. I used to just write relentlessly, like, fan mails, and they used to have a platform earlier where people could submit openly, and I used to every single day very religiously write something or the other and send them. So imagine 20 every day. So I submitted bunch of pieces, and then one got selected, and I got a call from them that, hey, we are publishing this. And that was like, oh my god, what is happening? Dream come true moment for me. One tale getting published on a platform at that time was a very, very, very big deal. Then second tale got published, and then I gained some confidence that maybe I can do something like this, and consider it as a career. So I wrote to them that I would love to be a part, without telling my parents obviously. And this was I was still pursuing my last year in engineering, and I said, okay, if this works out well, what's the harm? So I sent them a mail. I reached out to them saying I would love to be a part of your team. Here are my samples, and I picked some brands that were at the time, they were publishing about that, and I wrote my own stories on those brands. And I got a call back. They're like, yes, so we are expanding our company, please join. And I was like, I still have to give my engineering exams. But yeah, that's it's quite a very filmy story of sorts. But yeah, that happened. Then in 2016 I joined as a junior content lead. That's how I began. And at that time, the team's average age was 21-year-old. So everybody was straight out of college. And there were people from commerce background, there were people from engineering, biochemical engineering, all sorts of people. So very fun mix of like-minded people who shared this love. Really, really, the only common thing that got us all together was this passion to, I still have goosebumps when I talk about it, passion of just telling stories. And that's how we began, just as a junior content lead. Then I loved, I picked up this liking towards stories on social media, that how, while scrolling, how can you come across a piece that just touches you and makes you think something, makes you introspect. And yeah, I think that's something I found comfort in, and happiness in, some sort of satisfaction. It was cathartic. So yeah, social media, then I became chief curator for social media, and then yeah, 5 years later, and it's a small team, right, startup. So we began with 20 people, now there are 40 plus. So everybody did everything. So I've worked in brands, I worked in tech, I worked in product, I worked in film, we still do that. We still work in all across the departments. So I have a fair experience of sorts in everything. And yeah, that's how it's not a linear journey. It's been chaotic actually, but it's also fun because I think creation is also not linear, and it's all over the place, and somewhere in that chaos you find some beauty, some joy, some solace. So yeah.
I think it's amazing how you described your like journey with TTT is very filmy, because I totally agree. Like, this is, I think, many people's dream career. Like, to be able to make money off of your passion is a like, it's a dream a lot of us aspire to have. And in that filmy story, something very interesting that I picked up as, a student of marketing, is that like one of the fundamental backbones of TTT is the user generated content, right? Like, the people who really love what TTT is doing on their social media, they're the ones who are like, you know what, I want to contribute to this. So you're leveraging, the vast writer community to narrate tales under, hashtags like midnight musings, hashtag select, hashtag shower thoughts. These are all these different content formats, and it feels like very representational of the emotional zeitgeist that people have, because you're including their voices. You're not talking to them, you're talking with them. So I want to understand, like, TTT as a platform, how exactly do you go about leveraging that user generated content to achieve this resonance that you have with your audience?
So, like you said, our core is we are not talking at people or to people, we are talking with them. So that is really the what do I call it, the core ethos of how we tell stories. Also within us, the team of writers, I always say that during my sessions, that every creator is also a consumer. So our team is also a set of consumers. We are also consuming certain kind of stories. We all began as contributors, we still are contributors. There's no one person that is telling the stories at TTT, and that's the beautiful part about it, that there's not one line of thought that we are following. We are following a bunch of feelings, a range of emotions that people feel or relate with or are feel represented by. And that's where the community comes in. So see, the thing is, we earlier it was a pure user generated. Actually, when it started, it was just 15 writers. TTT began with 15 writers, and then we thought, okay, why just limit it to 15 voices? Imagine what more people, more minds, or more hearts could bring to that. So we slowly increased and expanded, and then there was I initially was a part of the curation team. We used to read some 5,000 stories every single day, and go through them and pick voices. It was a very tiring, exhausting, sometimes frustrating process, but also within that you found we found such amazing, brilliant voices who are still with us, by the way. Like, they have somehow become part of TTT, or they are remote writers. But you don't find voices like these very easily. It's a very difficult task to find somebody who shares the same value system and also knows how to give words or a visual or a story to a feeling. So it starts with user generated, but now I think we have come to a point where we also realize that we need to tell certain kind of stories. There needs to be a very strict curation of what we put out there, because now there's a big community that we need to address and we need to create for. So it's not really autonomous in that way, the way it was 5 years back, where we had the freedom to just put stories out there. Like, the scene has changed a lot over the years. We have to now take care of the algorithm also. We have to take care to be consistent with our performance and numbers, so that brands come in, revenue. Now we have, like, people to pay. Exactly, people are working for us. We are a company now. So now it's not extremely user generated, I would say. We still try and find platforms or ways through which we can get new voices. So now, instead of them submitting to us, we go to them saying, hey, we found your handle, you are doing this is great, we love your voice, would you want to contribute? So now the screening is from our end, rather than now also the creator scene has become so vast. Now it's very difficult. Even if we call for entries, it's just difficult to go through the kind of volume we receive. So now we have we have just flipped the process. Now we skim through the volume that's already existing, people who are already out there comfortable creating content, have a certain kind of voice, and we pick from there.
So, Sanjana, that's something you mentioned, that there are a lot of factors that come in when you're creating content for brands. And that leads us to like the next question that I had for you, that you have used your experience in storytellings, that you've created multiple content IPs for many popular prominent brands. And because there's so much content clutter in today's world, how do you consistently maintain originality and freshness during your ideation and creation process in that case?
See, now there are two things to it. There internally also we have very clear or somewhat some sort of boundary between branded content and editorial content. Branded content, the basic filter before anything else is the budget. So the brand comes to us with certain money in their head, certain set of amount that they would like to spend on a campaign, and everything that we pitch to them is based on that monetary compensation. Similarly, if we are pitching a campaign to a brand, we put a certain amount that these are our formats and this is the budget that will work on, and then the conversations happen that this is not falling in our budget, that's falling in our budget. But core of it, if you talk about how do we still keep the heart of storytelling at it while creating branded content, I think the first question we ask while pitching to a brand and while briefing for a brand is that how which part of the messaging of this brand aligns with our messaging. Because unlike ads that go on television or newspapers, TTT still has an audience, it has a voice. So it's very important to find out which part of the brand story aligns with our story. So whatever brand it is, we don't even pitch to all brands, because some brands just doesn't align with our voice. So we pick brands that cater to younger generation, that cater to our target audience, and within that we find out, okay, what part can we use to our advantage or to our storytelling. So let's say if the brand has a strong affiliation to the emotion of friendship, or to the emotion of familial connection, to the emotion of love. So that's the first question we ask ourselves, that what's the feeling here? What does the brand stand for? What would they like to stand for? So the brand also comes with us that they come to us with a very technical brief, of course, that let's say if they want to promote a certain brand of coffee, in their heads it's very simple that they want to promote their coffee brand. They will say that this coffee brand caters to urban metro people, younger generation. It sparks conversation, the feeling of knowing somebody. So now the important part here for us is the feeling of knowing somebody, or to get conversations, because that's the story part of it. That's where we will that's what will help us create stories. So then we go back to them and say, okay, here's an IP, let's say Talk It Out. Here's an IP, Talk It Out, where we create stories on people meeting for the first time, the awkwardness of first conversations, uh, the vulnerability of first conversations when people meet for the first time. What are the things they would like to talk about? First dates could be a separate setup if that's something. If you want to explore romantic connections, we can do a whole series on first dates. Let's make first dates a series. Or if you want to include how people meet, adults are meeting these days and creating friendships, then that's a different category. So this is how we start from a very core thought of, let's say, conversations, and then we move on to what aligns with the brand. And coffee then becomes an instrument. It's not the hero of the story. The hero of the story is the story. The coffee is just a catalyst or like a participant. So it doesn't really uh, is not in consumers face that, oh, they are advertising coffee, it's about coffee, we don't want to listen about it. It's about the conversation. When people buy products, they are not really buying products, they are buying stories behind the product. When you talk about product, you talk, oh, this made me feel like this, or oh, this skincare makes me feel good, it's a good hair day. So you're not really promoting a shampoo, you are promoting a feeling, what it made you feel. And yeah, that's how we the whole team brainstorms, okay, let's find out what the feeling is that we can target, and once you know the feeling, then the product can come in later in the picture.
So I think the way you described how you go about like planning out content and saying, okay, a brand has come to us with this. This is how we'd like to, hit on feelings and not just sell an ad, which I think is very important in today's age and day and age where like you're constantly bombarded with ads, you're tired of it. It's nice to like indulge in something that's genuine and still, manages to meet that kind of, I guess, business angle of it. So I think in a similar vein, I have a question about, something people whose main business I would say is like on social media. Something they're constantly thinking about is, oh my god, we have to optimize for the platform, we have to optimize for the platform. Reels is a new trending format, Instagram lives were a format, and in this like kind of rat race to keep up, oftentimes the soul of the content like needs to keep up as well. And so I want to ask you, like, I believe TTT earlier used to be very text forward, and now in fact if you have a look at the page, there's a lot more illustration work, there's a lot more reel work. And so I want you to take us like behind the scenes on the process of, as a platform, keeping up with, I would say, maybe Instagram's format changes. How have you kept your stories alive as the platform keeps shifting?
Right. So this is one interesting thing also I mention when I'm taking workshops is every creator or a storyteller has different personalities in their head. Like they might be a 30-year-old, they might be a 40-year-old, but when they are creating, they are a different person if you are creating for other people. So let's say when I joined TTT, I was the target audience of TTT. I was a 21-year-old. That's the core target. Now I'm 28, but I'm still creating for 21-year-olds. So I have to constantly, isolate from my personality as what I am, and constantly say, okay, what are the 21-year-olds reading or consuming these days? It's a difficult process. It's very, very frustrating because every day now the evolution is so fast paced that it can literally get very frustrating to keep up. Okay, what is this new slang that people are talking about? What is this new pop culture reference that we don't have any clue about? So then you have to, let go of that control and say, okay, let me talk to a younger person. And that's why we have a team of people who are 18-year-olds, who are 23-year-olds, who are 25-year-olds, who are constantly, and we listen to them. Okay, oh, this we didn't know. And they're like, yeah, people are talking about anime, people are talking about K-pop. We don't follow that, right? But you need to have that much knowledge or some sort of idea about what's going on. So yeah, I think it's very important to, like you said, keep up with it, because you're still catering to a community, and you have to find out what they are talking about in order for you to create relatable content for them. I can stay in my silo and say, no, I will create content that I want to create, but then I am not catering, or I'm not keeping my community in mind. So I think at the core, the community just wants to be seen and heard and understood, and you have to find out how to create something through which they will feel seen, understood, and heard. And that's why it's very, very important to observe and just take some time to sit back. Like, most of my time now goes in just scrolling. I do not have the luxury to do Insta detox. I mean, my job is literally on Instagram, so I'm constantly seeing things which I don't even like, seeing things which I don't even agree with. But I also see, okay, there's a certain section, what is something that people are liking about it. Something that I might find cringe, or people my generation might find cringe, is aspirational for a certain set of society. And regardless of my judgment, they are stories evolve over time. Your parents might not agree with the kind of stories that you like now, but you can't hold that against you. I mean, it's very, very difficult to create that way. You have to constantly evolve. And yeah, I think after time creation becomes a process that's you find the joy in adapting. So your core can still remain the same. Let's say if I love to write about romance, 5 years back I would write about romance in a certain way, and now I'm writing about it in a certain way. But the core remains the same. I mean, it's triggering the same things in you, just in a different way. So it's very important to keep up with this evolving language of storytelling, to say that, oh, this is now people will hear it better, people will consume it better, people will read it better if I say it like that. And a lot of creators who created back in 5 years back or started, they now struggle with this, that how do we adapt to this madness now? Everybody wants to read memes, everybody wants to read these short stories. I'm like, you can crib about it or you can adapt to it. And just it's a very tricky thing to keep your voice alive and yet adapt. And I think once you figure out a way to keep your core and your voice same, and find a way, okay, how do I just say it to, let's say I want to talk to a 15-year-old about love. I can't talk it like how I can't talk about it like how I talk to my peers. It's very simple, it's basic communication. You talk like your consumers talk, and you have to just figure it out. Sometimes our personal arrogance or our personal reservations about certain kind of content might stop us from doing it, but that's something you have to get over.
So, Sanjana, I think you shared a very important lesson for all our listeners, that how to have a audience pulse. You need to understand that, while at the same time you need to keep your essence, the core of your brand, right? And like that kind of leads us to the next question, where content creation has become such a business necessity, and now a lot of legacy brands who never used to indulge in it before now have picked up on it and now are starting their like blogs and newsletters. So, and now it's also an aspirational occupation for the younger population, the Gen Z. So, given that you have had this journey and you've been through it, what would be your advice for the content creators of tomorrow, considering the industry's trends and opportunities?
I think I consider myself very fortunate in this, that I started my career at a point where there was very, very less competition. And, this field was not explored. There was very less exposure. When I said I wanted to become a writer, there were like murmurs and judgments and of all sorts. This is 2015 we are talking about. And now with so much exposure, so much so many routes and so many fields through which you can enter into the stream, it's become much much harder, unfortunately. At the same time, the good thing about it is you that there's a lot more freedom to experiment, to try and fail. Like, you can afford to fail right now, that's a big privilege. Back in 2015, if I failed it, I had to think of other career options immediately and think, okay, what am I going to do right now? Now it's not the case. You can just try writing, make your own brand, make your own profile. There are so many meme pages, so many content pages that take user generated content. You can just try it out, see if what is working for you, see what is not working for you, find out your voice. That's, I think that's a luxury that creators of today have, that there's so much to learn from. At the same time, there's competition, there's crazy competition, because users have become creators. So there's a lot of, like you say, clutter. When you say clutter, the fight is not to break the clutter, the fight is to stay at the top of the clutter, because there's nothing that can break the clutter. There's so much of creation around that the moment you have an idea, within hours replications of it will happen. There's the originality of thought is obsolete now. So you just have to figure out, okay, this is the thought I have, I know that 50,000 other people will have it. In what better way can I put it out? In what way can I put it out that will make people laugh, or will relate or will resonate with people? Because see, 5 years back, content creation or consumption was an extra added activity to your day to day life, like shopping or reading or going out and meeting friends. You took some time, and not everybody did it. You took people who only liked content consumption did it. There were sets of people who consumed a certain kind of content. So there were photographers who would love to see photography content. There were food enthusiasts who only consumed food blogging. There were writers, readers who only followed. But now, over the years, it has become, like you said, people are inhaling content. So inhaling means it has become air. It is everywhere. It's become so woven in our lives that everybody is doing it. And when everybody is doing it, it's not clutter really. It's become routine. It's become a part of your life. So then you cannot really, if it's air, you cannot really find a new way to create air. You can't find a new air. You just have to make the one more breathable. So you just have to find, okay, if this is the clutter, how do I do it better? How do I make people more comfortable and seen with my kind of content? And that's where I think the brain power is required. And what I would say to the creators of tomorrow is, don't be afraid to fail. I think that's a luxury that you have, of failing and trying and failing and trying. A lot of creation is also about, sitting back and observing. I think right now, the environment of social media is such that everybody is so much in a hurry to just put out there, just put whatever idea I have, even if it is not brewed to its full potential, even if it is not, it's still raw, it's in its early stage, let me just put out of there. Because validation, no, the thirst of validation is the biggest enemy of creation. Because you are looking for temporary short term, endorphins. You are looking something, you're not looking to tell a story. You're looking for just putting out a story there. Whether or not people are listening or not listening, then you are immediately affected. Oh, this didn't work. This gets so many likes. This got. Whenever somebody new in my team comes and when they are trying out content, I generally give them full freedom that, okay, now it's on you. Fine, make the schedule for the next 1 week. I am not going to overlook it. I will only directly see it on the page what's going up. And very naturally, after 2 weeks or 1 week, I get a very frantic message. Oh my god, this didn't work, this didn't work. I'm like, it's okay, fine, fine, doesn't work. You have learned something out of it. Why did it not? You tell me, why did it not work? I mean, don't lose your sleep over it. You are publishing content for 2.5 million people on a daily basis. You will fail. If you're not failing, then I'm more worried that, are you okay? Are you getting enough sleep? But it's okay if you fail. I mean, take some time, sit back, relax, let your brain breathe. I mean, it's so important to let just your brain breathe. So yeah, rest, observe, absorb, and then create.
I love that you summarized it at the end. I think that was perfect. And so I'm glad that we actually kind of ended our main segment talking about advice, because we actually have somebody who is asking for more advice. So a fun segment we do on MyCast is we reveal the speaker to all our batchmates on campus and we say, hey, we're getting this really exciting person. Do you have questions? This is your opportunity. So we have Sunny Kalyani from CCC at MICA. CCC is our crafting creative communications course. They're some of the most creative people on campus. And the reason I explain that is because their question has something related to that. So their question is, TTT recently launched a course called Writing That Sells. And how has the audience response been about this program, considering it's an extension of TTT's platform strength? And would you recommend this course to individuals like myself, that's Sunny speaking about themselves, whose academic curriculums place a strong emphasis on copywriting?
Right. So first of all, thanks, Sunny. Hi, Sunny. Thank you for your question. It's a combination. All the modules are a smart combination of industry techniques plus techniques that people who are giving that module have learned while working. And I think that's the best part about this whole course, that it these techniques or tips are not taken from textbooks that do this, do this, do this, do this. They are tried and tested. So many of these techniques you will not find in any course or textbook or anything, because it's come out of personal experiences. So these are lived, these are tried and tested and worked.
So, Sanjana, now we have come to the most fun segment, which is also the last segment. This is the rapid fire segment. And so we just ask you very interesting, fun, short questions, and you just have to say the first thing that comes to mind. The first question is, what's one book you'd recommend to our audience?
Oh, The Anxious People, I love it. The Anxious People, everybody should read it. Very beautiful story. I'm a fiction person also, so I'll only recommend fiction books.
I think that's perfectly fine. Next question. Name a podcast or web series that you love.
Web series. There's a web series called The Unbelievable on Netflix. Very good web series. I would not tell it what it is about. But I love thrillers, so I watch a lot of serial killer documentaries, which is very in contrast to the kind of things I write. But yeah, it gives me a headspace away from my main genre, which is romance and mushy things. So I watch thriller just to clear my head. And Unbelievable is a really good thriller show.
Okay, the next question is a piece of content, branded or unbranded, that you won't ever forget.
Currently, I am a big fan of what Bumble does. It's a very good way that they are talking about modern dating relationships, getting a lot of voices that are relevant also, and I love the way they handle these topics. So yeah, Bumble.
Okay. What excites you about being a content focused creative director today? That one thing that gets you really excited.
I every time I post see something on the page and the comments is, oh wow, how did you know that we were thinking this? This one comment always motivates me so much, that you put something out there that you might be feeling or might be inspired from your, but like millions of people are resonating with it. It's so satisfying and cathartic. So, as a content creator, I just love it when people say, oh my God, how did you know about this? Or, I went through the same thing. There's a certain level of empathy that comes with it. It brings you closer to your audience without even knowing anything about them. So, that feeling that, oh, I've been there. Thanks for writing this. Thanks for putting words to my feelings.
And finally, and I think this question sums up our entire podcast, can you describe TTT in one word?
I think every time I talk about it, it's stories. Everything I think sums up gets summed up there. Stories that Meaningful stories that people connect with. If in one line I had to summarize, stories at the core of it. Yes, we tell stories. Everything you see around you are stories, and we just find those moments where people can feel understood.
I think that's the most beautiful note we could have ended our podcast on. Thank you so much, Sanjana, for joining us today. We were incredibly excited, and I'm sure that the listeners are going to love this episode. And we had a lovely time.